I transmigrated into a book, becoming a canon fodder male supporting character with the same name in a cliched, wealthy, and pure love story. In the original plot, I was merely a tool used to highlight the male lead. Although I inherited billions in assets and became a cold, handsome young CEO, I was just a fall guy. Due to a family marriage alliance, I married Sherry, an aloof and proud heiress from a prestigious family. In the original book, Sherry had an untouchable, white moonlight, in her heart. For that man, she treated me with icy indifference, and eventually, she even collaborated with her white moonlight to completely ruin my company, leaving me homeless and ending up in a miserable state. I looked down at the tie of my custom-tailored suit, then glanced at my strikingly handsome face in the mirror, and let out a sigh. Is my life really going to end up on the streets? That would be way too tragic. I couldn't help but mutter a quiet, self-deprecating complaint. Since I'm already here, there's no way I'm just going to sit around and wait for things to happen. Since Sherry is bound to kick me out sooner or later for her white moonlight, I might as well strike first, transfer the assets in advance, or find a chance to get this marriage over with. Just as I was sitting on the leather sofa in the living room, imagining how miserable my future would be, the crisp sound of high heels came from the entrance. Sherry was back. She was wearing a well-tailored white trench coat, her long hair falling over her shoulders, and her face was as delicate as a white porcelain statue, devoid of any warmth. She gave me a faint glance, changing her shoes while speaking in a cool, clear voice. "Morgan, you're back quite early today." "Nothing much at the company, so I came back early," I replied, maintaining the calm and composed demeanor of a CEO, nodding with a slight smile. Just then, out of nowhere, a crisp, soft, and even slightly aggrieved female voice suddenly echoed in my mind. "Woo-woo, my husband looks so handsome in that dark blue suit today. And that tie, I secretly placed it in his wardrobe last month. Does he know how I feel? Ah, he just smiled at me, he's so gentle, I'm melting." I instantly froze in place. This voice, why did it sound exactly like Sherry's? But the problem was, the Sherry in front of me was currently wearing a tense, pretty face, her eyes as cold as if they could drop ice shards, walking toward the living room expressionlessly. I rubbed my ears. Was it my imagination? Is something wrong? Sherry walked over to the sofa, looking down at me, her tone indifferent. Oh my God, am I being too harsh? Why does my husband have that expression? Oh no, does he hate me? What should I do? I actually just wanted to ask him what he wants for dinner. Woo-woo, Sherry, you idiot, can't you be a little gentler? I was completely shocked. This wasn't an illusion, it was my superpower. I could actually hear Sherry's thoughts. What shattered my worldview even more was that the icy female lead from the original book, who hated me to the bone and only had eyes for her first love, turned out to be a tsundere sweetheart secretly obsessed with me. The contrast was just too much. I tentatively stood up and pulled out a chair for her to sit down. You must be hungry. I had the housekeeper prepare dinner. Sherry sat down coldly, folding her hands on her knees and lifting her chin slightly. Thanks, but I'm not hungry. I already ate at the office. I'm actually starving. To maintain my figure, I only had a slice of whole wheat bread today. But as long as I can act like an elegant noblewoman in front of my husband, I can endure it. Morgan's gesture of pulling out the chair was so gentlemanly, I really want to hug him. Hearing this inner thought, I almost burst out laughing. Forcing back my smile, my gaze landed on the table, where a high-end custom catalog sat, filled with selection guides for top-tier men's luxury goods, sports cars, and bespoke suits. Not only that, but Sherry's phone screen happened to light up with a schedule reminder: next Friday, airport pickup for international flight, shun phone. My heart sank. In the original storyline, Sherry's first love seemed to be returning to the country around this time. Now she's picking out gifts and planning the itinerary to pick someone up at the airport. Could it be that deep down, despite having some strange fantasies about me, the person she truly loves is still that white moonlight who's about to return? The moment I thought about my tragic fate in the original book, being driven to bankruptcy and liquidation, I snapped back to reality. No, I can't be fooled by her surface actions and these strange inner thoughts. What if this is just a tactic to deceive me? I have to take the initiative, create a crisis, and see what her true stance really is. Since you want to pick up your white moonlight, I'll bring someone else home. The next morning, I arrived at the company. As the CEO, my first task of the day wasn't to review reports, but to call my special assistant, who also happens to be my college classmate, Eva, into my office. Eva is a carefree and outgoing girl, extremely obsessed with money in her daily life. Her biggest dream in life is to make money and watch the fun unfold. Morgan, calling me in first thing in the morning, what's the top directive? Eva asked, raising an eyebrow while holding a stack of files. I leaned back in my executive chair, crossed my hands, and said with a serious expression, Eva, do me a favor. Next week, pretend to be my secret lover and come home with me. After hearing this, Eva's eyes nearly popped out of her head. She quickly stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest. Morgan, are you crazy? Your wife is Sherry. The most beautiful and coldest ice queen in the entire city. You want me to be cannon fodder? Aren't you afraid she'll freeze me into an ice sculpture? 100,000, plus 3 months of paid leave. I held up 3 fingers. Eva's expression changed instantly, turning into a sycophantic smile in a split second. She slapped her thigh. Got it. Boss, don't worry. Forget playing your lover, I could even play your long-lost biological daughter. I guarantee professionalism and your satisfaction. I smiled with satisfaction. Good. You don't need to do anything excessive. Just act a little flirtatious with me, enough to provoke Sherry. After the plan was set, I deliberately acted distracted at home over the next few days. Meanwhile, Sherry's inner thoughts began to grow increasingly anxious. On Thursday evening, I was sitting in the study reading documents. Sherry walked in with a cup of hot milk and placed it on my desk. She still had that cold, detached demeanor, her voice flat and without inflection. Tomorrow evening, I have something to do and might not be back for dinner. I knew that tomorrow was the day that, white moonlight, would return to the country. Just so happens, I'm also bringing a friend home for dinner tomorrow night, I replied without looking up, my tone equally cold. Sherry was slightly taken aback, her brow furrowing slightly. A friend? What kind of friend? A friend? Male or female? Morgan never takes the initiative to bring friends home. Could it be that he's out there? No, Morgan isn't that kind of person. But why is my heart racing like this? Oh no. I took a deep breath, lifted my head to meet her eyes, and deliberately slowed down my speech. Someone, very important to me. You'll find out tomorrow. Sherry's face instantly turned pale, but she quickly masked it, coldly uttering a single word, oh. Important person. Who is it? Which vixen dares to steal my husband? I'm so furious, so furious. Tomorrow, I must come back early and see who it is. Hearing this, I felt a twinge of unease, but there was no turning back. Tomorrow, everything would be revealed. On Friday evening, Eva and I returned to the villa together. To make the act convincing, Eva deliberately wore a striking red dress today and, for the first time, put on an elaborate, heavy makeup look. Boss, how do I look? Am I at the level of a flashy seductress? Eva asked in a low voice as she climbed the stairs. More than enough. Just act natural later and don't blow our cover, I instructed. As soon as we walked in, we saw Sherry already sitting on the living room sofa. She hadn't gone to pick anyone up at the airport today, and surprisingly, she had come home early for a change. She was dressed in a black loungewear set, her long legs crossed, holding a cup of coffee in her hand, her gaze piercing us like 2 icy daggers. Morgan, is this the important person you mentioned? Sherry set down her coffee cup, her voice cold enough to freeze ice. Eva immediately slipped into character, hooking her arm through mine with a flirtatious laugh. Oh my, Morgan, so this is Sherry? She's even more beautiful than I'd heard. I'm Eva, at the office, Morgan is completely under my care, you know. I could feel Eva's hand trembling slightly as she held my arm, clearly intimidated by Sherry's presence. But my attention was entirely on Sherry's inner thoughts. Ah! I'm so mad. Who is this woman? Why is she holding my husband's arm? That red dress is hideous, she looks like a giant strawberry. Morgan, you absolute jerk, you actually brought another woman home. My heart hurts, woo-woo. I want to cry. On the surface, Sherry merely let out a cold sneer, stood up, and looked down at Eva from a height. Morgan does work hard at the company, but at home, I can take care of him just fine. Dressed like that today, anyone would think you're here for a red carpet event. You. Eva was stunned into silence by the retort and looked to me for help. I was about to speak up to ease the tension when suddenly, the villa's doorbell rang wildly. The urgent chime broke the tense atmosphere in the living room. The nanny quickly rushed to open the door. As soon as the door swung open, a tall young man, pushing 2 large suitcases and wearing an English-style trench coat, stormed in hurriedly. Sis! I'm back. Missed you so much. The man shouted at the top of his lungs as soon as he walked through the door. I took a closer look and was instantly stunned. This man bore a striking resemblance to Sherry, about 60%. What shocked me even more was that Eva, standing beside me, let out a scream the moment she saw this man, Jason. What are you jerk, doing here? The man was also taken aback, nearly dropping the suitcase in his hand as he stared wide-eyed at Eva. Eva? What are you doing at my sister's place? And dressed like that? The man standing outside the door had completely disrupted all of our scripts. The air in the living room seemed to freeze at that moment. I looked at Jason, then at Eva, and finally turned to Sherry. A million questions raced through my mind. What on earth is going on here? Wasn't the first love in the original book supposed to be a man? Wait, Jason called Sherry, sis. So, all this time, Sherry has been preparing gifts and planning itineraries to pick up someone from the airport, not some lover or first love, but her younger brother who just returned from studying abroad. Do you know each other? I couldn't help but ask, breaking the eerie silence. Sherry frowned deeply, glancing at Eva and then at her own shocked brother. She spoke coldly. Jason, explain this. What's going on? And isn't Eva Morgan's important person? Wait, how does my brother know this woman in the red dress? And they seem to have a very unusual relationship. Could it be that Morgan and she aren't involved? No, then why would Morgan bring her home? My mind is a mess. Someone save me. At this point, Jason couldn't care about anything else. He rushed over to Eva in 3 quick strides, pointing at her red dress, his face turning pale with anger. Eva, you'd better explain yourself. You disappeared for a full 6 months, blocked all my contact information, and now you show up at my sister's house dressed like this? What's your relationship with Morgan? Eva let out a cold laugh, crossed her arms, and shot back without backing down. Jason, don't you dare turn this around on me. Do I need to report to you what my relationship with Morgan is? Stay away from me, you scumbag who can't let go of your ex-girlfriend. When did I ever have a messy entanglement with my ex-girlfriend? That's my cousin. My cousin. Jason stomped his foot in anger. I rubbed my temples and turned to look at Sherry. Sherry was also looking at me at that moment, a rare flicker of confusion and helplessness flashing in her eyes. Oh my God, so Eva is actually my younger brother's ex-girlfriend? And she and Morgan are just colleagues. Did Morgan deliberately bring her to piss me off? Why? Why would he want to piss me off? Could it be that he is jealous? Hearing Sherry's inner thoughts, my heart skipped a beat. I looked at her still tense face, which was slightly flushed from nervousness, and suddenly realized that all my pointless fussing over the past few days had turned into a huge joke. Ahem, well. I cleared my throat, trying to regain control. How about we sit down and sort things out one by one? Sort things out? Yes, we must sort things out. Jason grabbed Eva's wrist. Eva, if you don't make things clear to me today, you're not walking out that door. Let go. Jason, are you asking for trouble? Eva struggled. The situation had completely spiraled out of control. Though the truth was beginning to surface, the stubbornness of the four people was clearly making this misunderstanding even more tangled. Finally, under my strong intervention, the four of them sat down at the dining table. The table was set with a sumptuous dinner freshly prepared by the nanny, but no one had the appetite to eat. Jason and Eva sat side by side, like two fighting cocks, glaring at each other with sparks practically flying from their eyes. Meanwhile, Sherry and I sat on the other side, the atmosphere equally tense. Jason, shut up first. As soon as Sherry spoke, her authority as the eldest sister was unmistakable, and Jason immediately shrank his neck, not daring to make a sound. Sherry turned her head, her cold gaze falling on Eva. Now, can you tell me what exactly your relationship is with my husband? Please, just say you're just a normal, purely professional superior-subordinate relationship. Otherwise, I really can't help but kick Morgan under the table. I'm so mad, though I know it might be a misunderstanding, seeing them so close just now still makes me so jealous. Hearing my wife's frantic inner monologue, I almost couldn't help but laugh. Eva was feeling a bit guilty at this point. She glanced at me, and seeing that I didn't object, she muttered softly, "Sorry, actually, Morgan and I are just college classmates and colleagues. Today Morgan hired me to put on a show. He said he wanted to provoke you." "A show?" Sherry turned to look at me, her gaze sharp as a knife. "Morgan, explain yourself." I touched my nose and coughed awkwardly. "Well, Sherry, I noticed you've been looking at men's merchandise catalogs lately, and you arranged to pick someone up at the airport today. I thought, you had someone else you liked, so I wanted to test you." Sherry was stunned. "What? He thought I had someone else? Oh my God, he actually suspected me? No, wait, is he jealous? He's jealous because I arranged to pick someone up. Oh my God, he cares about me." Sherry's heart was already setting off fireworks, but on the surface, she just let out a cold snort and pointed at Jason. "I was helping Jason pick out gifts and a car for his return home. Morgan, don't you think your imagination is running a little wild? I misunderstood. I apologize." I raised my hands in surrender very sincerely. At that moment, Jason, who had been holding back all along, suddenly slammed the table and shouted at Eva, "Did you hear that? My sister and brother-in-law are a loving couple. But you, Eva, you came to break up someone else's family for just 100,000, you've got some nerve. Do you know I've been going crazy looking for you for the past 6 months? Looking for me? Why would you look for me? To keep watching you and your good little sister making out." Eva sneered sarcastically. It seemed the main misunderstanding on my end was about to be resolved, but the feud between Eva and Jason, this side couple, was just getting started. "Eva, I'm telling you one last time, she really is my cousin. My aunt's daughter." Jason scratched his head in frustration, completely losing the gentlemanly demeanor he had when he first returned from abroad. "She was heartbroken that day and cried while hugging me, and you happened to see it. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, just blocked me and disappeared. Where's the fairness in that?" Eva paused, looking at him suspiciously. "Really? She wasn't the one you were cheating on me with? I swear. If I'm lying to you, may I get hit by a car when I go out and be reincarnated as a pig in my next life." Jason swore, pointing to the sky. "All right, stop making such childish vows here." Sherry coldly interrupted her brother's act, then turned to Eva. "Eva, Jason may be unreliable on a normal day, but when it comes to relationships, he really doesn't have the guts to cheat. I can vouch for that." Eva's expression finally softened a bit, but she still stubbornly turned her head away. "Humph, even so, he's still an idiot." Yes, I'm an idiot. So can you please unblock me?" Jason shamelessly leaned in and tugged at Eva's sleeve. Watching the two of them interact, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. However, while the misunderstanding between the secondary couple had been cleared up, there was still an unsettled score between Sherry and me. After dinner, Eva and Jason, that pair of bickering lovebirds, left the villa with a bit of scheming. Before leaving, Jason shamelessly insisted on walking Eva home. Only Sherry and I were left in the living room. The light from the chandelier fell on Sherry's delicate face. She stood there, her head slightly lowered, her hands nervously twisting together, completely devoid of her usual aloofness and pride. "Oh no, we're alone now, I'm so nervous." He just admitted he was jealous. Does that mean he likes me? Should I ask him directly? But it's so embarrassing. What if he was just joking? Watching her struggle like this, my heart melted completely. All thoughts of the original plot, bankruptcy, and being a disposable character were thrown out of my mind. At that moment, all I knew was that the woman standing before me had liked me all along. "Sherry, let's talk." I walked over and said softly. Sherry's body stiffened slightly, then she looked up, trying to respond in a calm voice. "Talk about what?" "About, when exactly you started liking me." I smiled slightly and dropped the bombshell directly. Sherry's eyes widened instantly, filled with shock. What nonsense are you talking about? Who likes you?" Sherry's face instantly flushed all the way to the roots of her ears. She instinctively took a step back, her eyes darting around aimlessly, unable to meet my gaze. "Ah! How does he know? Did I really act that obviously?" "No, I've been cold to him every day, how could he tell?" "Oh my God, this is so embarrassing, I wish I could crawl into a hole." Watching her on the verge of exploding from shyness yet stubbornly trying to keep up a cool facade, I couldn't hide the smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. I leaned in closer, backing her to the edge of the sofa. Placing my hands on either side of her body, I lowered my head slightly to look into her eyes. "Don't like me? Then just now at the dinner table, weren't you cursing me out in your head, calling me a big jerk, and saying seeing Eva holding my arm made you insanely jealous?" Sherry was completely stunned. Her mouth hung open as she stared at me blankly, her expression of disbelief utterly adorable. How do you know?" Her voice trembled. "Cheating. He must be cheating. Does he have mind-reading powers? Or did he plant a bug on me? This is terrifying. Oh no, all those times I called him, darling husband, in my head, wanting to hug him and kiss him, could he have heard all of that?" "Yes, I heard everything. Including darling husband," I whispered mischievously in her ear. Sherry had completely given up resisting. Flustered and furious, she raised her delicate fist and thumped me hard on the chest. "Morgan! You big liar! You cheated! You actually eavesdropped on my thoughts." "It wasn't me eavesdropping on purpose, it just wormed its way into my head on its own." I grabbed her wrist, pulled her into my arms, and held her tight. "But thank you for your thoughts. Otherwise, I might have missed out on you because I was too afraid of being abandoned." Sherry struggled in my arms for a moment, but when she realized she couldn't break free, she gradually softened. She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled yet carrying an unprecedented tenderness and resolve. "Idiot Morgan. I've liked you ever since I first saw you at the banquet 2 years ago. Marrying you is the happiest thing in my life, how could I ever abandon you?" Hearing these words, the heart I had been holding in suspense finally settled completely. In that moment, our two hearts finally came together without any barriers. Once the core misunderstanding was fully resolved, my relationship with Sherry heated up at rocket speed. The once cold and icy villa is now filled with pink bubbles every day. And what I enjoy most is still Sherry's, cold on the outside, warm on the inside, contrast cuteness. For example, right now. It's Saturday morning, and sunlight is streaming onto the big bed in the master bedroom. Sherry, wearing a silk pajama, is sitting at the dressing table carefully applying lipstick. She caught a glimpse of me waking up through the mirror and simply said, "Awake. There's a sandwich in the kitchen. Remember to eat it when you get up." Yet, what echoed in my mind was, "Wow, my husband looks so sexy just waking up, even with his messy bedhead. I really want to go over and give him a good morning kiss. But no, I just finished applying my lipstick, can't smudge it. Ah, he's walking over, what is he going to do?" I hugged her from behind, ignoring her startled gasp, and planted a big kiss on her freshly lipsticked red lips. Morgan. My lipstick." Sherry turned around angrily and glared at me. Hee hee, got a kiss, got a kiss. My husband is so passionate early in the morning, I can't help it. But it seems he really likes this shade of lipstick. I'll have to buy this color next time. It's okay, the lipstick is smudged, I'll help you wipe it off. I smiled, pulled out a tissue, and gently wiped the red smudge from the corner of her mouth. Sherry felt my tenderness, her eyes full of laughter, and let out a proud humph. Just as the two of us were being lovey-dovey in the room, a sudden commotion erupted downstairs, with the unmistakable sound of Jason's signature wailing faintly audible. Eva! Can you be reasonable for once? That's really just my high school classmate. She invited me to be a groomsman at her wedding, how could I say no? Ha, a groomsman. More like you want to scope out your next bride on the side, right? Jason, get the hell out. Sherry and I exchanged a glance and smiled helplessly. It seemed those two had turned our place into a relationship counseling room again. As we headed downstairs, Sherry casually linked her arm through mine. Walking into the living room, sure enough, Jason was crouching pitifully beside the sofa, clutching a large plush bear. Meanwhile, Eva sat on the sofa, holding a magazine in one hand and slapping it against the coffee table with a fierce rhythm. The development of their relationship was quite peculiar. Ever since the misunderstanding was cleared up last time, Jason had launched into a relentless pursuit mode. Although Eva acted dismissive, she had actually forgiven him long ago and was just deliberately messing with him. Sis. Bro-in-law. Save me. Jason cried out when he saw us, scrambling over as if we were his saviors. Enough. Making a racket in someone else's house early in the morning, what kind of behavior is that? Sherry instantly switched back to her aloof mode, her voice cold and crisp. Actually, watching the two of them argue is quite amusing, like two little chicks. But Jason is a bit wrong this time, I know about that high school classmate's wedding too. I'll have to help this silly brother out later, otherwise, when will he ever win the girl of his dreams? Hearing my wife's thoughts, I took the hint, walked over to Eva, and sat down with a smile. Eva, that's enough. I also received an invitation for Jason's classmate's wedding, and I know the groom. If you're worried, why not go with him as his plus one that day? Eva's eyes flickered at this, and she put down the magazine in her hand, turning to look at Jason. Is what he said true? True. Absolutely true. If you're willing to go as my plus one, I'd even give up being the best man. Jason quickly pledged his loyalty, nodding his head like a pecking chicken. Eva's pretty face flushed, and she turned away with a tsundere air, who wants to be your family member, but since Morgan asked, I'll reluctantly supervise you for a day. Yay! Eva, you're the best. Jason was so excited he almost jumped up, throwing away the plush bear and moving to hug Eva. Get lost. Keep your hands to yourself. Eva pushed him away in disgust. Watching this pair of bickering lovers, the whole living room was filled with laughter and joy. The afternoon sunlight streamed into the living room, shining on everyone's faces, warm and beautiful. A few days later, at Jason's high school classmate's wedding, an unexpected major event occurred. On the day of the wedding, the venue was decorated extremely luxuriously. As prominent figures in the business world, Sherry and I naturally attended as well. Eva, as Jason's family member, specially wore an elegant light blue gown today, making her appear much gentler. Jason, dressed in a formal suit, stayed close by Eva's side without leaving her for a moment, like a loyal knight. The wedding reached its climax with the bride's bouquet toss. A group of young, single men and women surged forward from the audience. Eva didn't want to join the crowd, but Jason dragged her to the front row. Eva, catch it. If you catch it, we'll be the next to get married. Jason shouted beside her. Shut up. This is so embarrassing. Eva wished she could stomp on his foot with her high heels. On stage, the bride turned her back to the crowd and tossed the bouquet with all her might. The pink bouquet, symbolizing happiness, traced a perfect arc through the air. The people around all reached out to grab it, but because the force was too strong, the bouquet flew right over everyone's heads and landed squarely, right into Eva's arms. Eva was completely stunned, standing there holding the bouquet. The entire venue erupted in warm applause and cheers. Jason was even more excited, like a 200-pound child. Suddenly, he pulled a small red box from his suit pocket and dropped to one knee. In front of everyone, he shouted loudly, "Eva! The bouquet chose you, which means fate wants you to marry me. I've thought it over clearly these past 6 months, I can't live without you. Marry me." The atmosphere in the room instantly ignited, with chants of, "Marry him! Marry him," rising and falling in waves. Eva looked at the man before her, her eyes instantly reddening. Though she muttered under her breath, "Who proposes at someone else's wedding? Such a show-off," she still extended her right hand, letting Jason slip the ring onto her finger. I turned to look at Sherry beside me. Her inner voice echoed in my mind. "Wow, how romantic. That rascal Jason has finally grown up, pulling off something like this. I want a proper proposal too. Even though we're already married, it was a family alliance back then, without any of this process. I'm so envious of Eva." Hearing the hint of envy and grievance in Sherry's voice, I held her hand tightly and silently made a decision in my heart. Tomorrow, I will give my wife the most romantic marriage proposal in the world. For this proposal, I used every resource at my disposal. I booked the city's most upscale rooftop revolving restaurant and had 99,999 pink roses transform the entire venue into a sea of flowers. Not only that, but I also hired a top-tier symphony orchestra to perform live. On Sunday evening, I made up an excuse about an important company business dinner that required her attendance, and brought Sherry to the restaurant. The moment the elevator doors opened, there wasn't a single customer in the entire restaurant, only soft lighting, fragrant roses, and the soothing sound of violins. Sherry covered her mouth, staring in shock at everything before her. "Oh my God, what is this? Isn't this a business dinner? Why are there roses everywhere? Could it be Morgan? No, 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 I dare not think about it. My heart is pounding so fast, it feels like it's about to jump out." I walked up to her, smiled, took her hand, and led her to the center of the restaurant. I took out the priceless pink diamond ring I had personally bid for at the auction, slowly knelt on one knee, and looked up at the woman I deeply loved. "Sherry, I know our beginning was due to a family alliance, and back then, I even doubted you because of various misunderstandings. I owe you a real beginning, and I also owe you a formal proposal." I took a deep breath, my gaze burning with passion. "Now, there's no interest, no family, just me. Sherry, are you willing to truly become my wife and let me take care of you for the rest of your life?" Sherry's tears finally burst forth. This time, she no longer used coldness to disguise herself. She nodded desperately, her voice choked with emotion. "I do. Morgan, I do." I stood up, gently slipped the ring onto her ring finger, and then pulled her tightly into my arms. Throughout the restaurant, the symphony reached its climax at that very moment. Wah, am I dreaming? My dear husband actually proposed to me. I'm so happy, I'm the happiest woman in the world. Morgan, I love you so, so much. Listening to her most sincere and passionate confession from the heart, I lowered my head and kissed her deeply. At this moment, all the original plot, all the cannon fodder fate, were utterly shattered by this overwhelming love. A month later, Sherry and I, along with Jason and Eva, moved into a newly purchased supersized villa. In Jason's words, this is called family reunion, mutual torment. Anyway, the villa is big enough, and with everyone living under one roof, our daily life is practically a live-action sitcom. Morning, bright and sunny. In the living room, Jason is wearing an apron, frantically frying eggs in the kitchen while shouting, "Honey! Eva, darling! Breakfast of love is almost ready, have you finished washing up?" Nag, 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 like you're rushing to the afterlife. Calling out my name at the crack of dawn. Eva comes downstairs in her pajamas, yawning. Though she's cursing, when she sees the slightly burnt but heartfelt fried eggs on the table, the corners of her mouth can't help but lift a little. Meanwhile, Sherry and I are sitting on the garden swing, enjoying a peaceful morning. I'm holding a cup of coffee, and Sherry is leaning on my shoulder, a book in her hand. To outsiders, we are still that aloof, wealthy CEO and the cold, proud socialite. But only I know just how sweet things are between us. I turned to look at her delicate profile, and suddenly heard her voice in my mind. Ah, the sunlight is so nice today, and my husband's shoulder is so comfortable to lean on. But, my period is a week late. Could it be? Oh my, should I go buy a pregnancy test? If it's true, Morgan would be over the moon, right? The coffee cup in my hand jolted violently, nearly spilling. Shocked, I turned my head to look at Sherry. Seeing my expression, Sherry blinked in slight confusion and resumed her calm tone. Morgan, what's wrong with you? So clumsy. I put down the coffee cup and pulled her into my arms, spinning her around several times. Wow. Morgan, you're crazy. Put me down, I'm dizzy. Sherry exclaimed. Honey, let's go to the hospital for a checkup right now. I was as excited as a fool. What are you checking? She asked, looking completely confused. I leaned in close to her ear and said with a mischievous grin, checking if I'm going to be a dad, my dear wife. Sherry's face instantly turned bright red. She playfully punched me, then broke into the most beautiful and tender smile in the world. I gazed at the blissful scene before me, feeling overwhelmed with emotion. The cannon fodder male supporting character who was once destined to end up on the streets is dead. Now, I have a beloved wife, a happy family, and a new life on the way. Fate has truly been completely changed by me.